producer of this film. You saw him in the film. He also produced it, as you saw, Lust in the Dust, and this film itself, Mr. Alan Glazer.
Just one kiss from your sweet lips will tell me that your love
is real. Have a seat. And I'm supposed to introduce the next guy, but I think we know everything there is to know about Tail Hunter. Have a seat, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Having said that, it occurs to me, I mean, a lot of people have films made about them that they sort of participate in, but it's weird for them maybe to see their life put on screen because they weren't instrumental in helping the film be made. But this is based on your own book. It's your story.
It is based on the book, absolutely. But I wasn't around while they were doing a lot of the filming, just the interviews. Alan worked on that for almost 7 years, and he's done an amazing job. But the sign of a good producer is really tough. You don't find many of them anymore. They're the ones who cause the film to happen. They're the ones who start out, know what they want to do, raise the money for it, hire the director for it, put all the pieces together, and work with the director right through to the finished product. I didn't have to do any of that. But I did have to talk about a lot of things that I'm not always comfortable about talking about.
Alan, as the book was being written, were you reading like over his shoulder and saying, this is going to be a movie, this is going to be a movie?
Well, I knew the basic story, and I always thought it would make a great movie.
Yeah.
But talking him into doing the book and the film, it took 2 years to talk him into doing the movie. Once the book came out, he said, let sleeping dogs lie. I don't want to talk about this anymore. That's it. Yeah. And after reading the book, I thought, no, this has to be a documentary, I thought. And finally, he agreed.
It occurs to me, it also would make a great dramatic film.
Right.
Who would play Tab Hunter?
It would have to be an unknown because there's no one in Hollywood today that looks like Tab looked. I mean, we'd have to discover someone much like Tab was discovered when he was a teenager.
Well, it was a whole different business then than it is today. Today, everything seems to be in your face. Blah, blah, they're spending hundreds of $millions on pictures. You go, you don't really care that much about. I mean, once in a while, a lovely independent will come along, or a little film that sneaks out, or occasionally even a big one that you like. But I would say the majority is not there. But see, we had those great movie moguls that ran those studios, and they were incredible. They ran a very tight ship. Jack Warner at Warner Brothers, Harry Cohn at Columbia, Daryl Zanuck at Fox, Louis B. Mayer at MGM, and they all made the type of films they wanted to make, and they were there conducting their orchestras and doing a beautiful job.
Your story shows the upside and the downside of that, though.
There's a lot of downside.
Yeah.
No, I was the latter part of the studio system. Prior to
you were among the very, very last people to be signed, right?
We were. It was, like at Warner Brothers, there was Natalie Wood, Jimmy Dean, and myself. Jimmy was the rebel, and I was the so-called all-American boy. And they put labels on you. They built you. They had huge studio PR departments that would go out there and work constantly, and your job was to do what they asked you to do. And if you didn't do your job, you were out, and they had somebody else there. And that's why there were a lot of careers that were very short-lived out there in Hollywood. But it was an exciting time. Unfortunately, they weren't doing a lot of product. So the product I had to do was occasionally a loan out to another studio, or in the days of live television. Now that was exciting. The days of Playhouse 90 and Climax and Studio One and those wonderful variety shows, Dinah Shore, Perry Como, I just go on and on. That was very exciting.
That Playhouse 90 footage was gripping.
I don't know where he found it.
Where'd you find that?
That took 20 years to find. It was
Really?
Somebody had a kinescope of it, from years ago, sitting in a basement at an old television station, and I got them to give me a copy of it. But that was one of Tab's best performances, that he gave. It was
Can we
really
see that
good.
whole thing? Is that?
I have seen it. No, it's great from start to
Yeah. Is that
finish.
on YouTube or something? Is there
It
any way to
is
find
now,
Is
yeah,
it really?
yeah. But like Tab said, television, live television, the Playhouse 90s, Climax, all of those venues gave him the opportunity to show his talent where it was more limited in features.
Yeah.
He could play against type on television, and they tried to pigeonhole him in just kind of that all-American boy image in the films.
I wanted to mention that Hollywood was very uncomfortable for me unless you were working with some wonderful actors that you could draw from and learn your craft from. But my touch of reality in that unrealistic world of Hollywood were my horses. And every free minute I would run out to the barn to shovel the real stuff as opposed to the Hollywood stuff.
No, I just wanted to add that the interesting thing that I found about the reason why I wanted to make this film is usually when you see documentaries on famous people, it's because they had some huge tragedy and they went off the deep end and they turned to drugs and alcohol and they almost committed. Tab made none of those choices. I found this inspirational and uplifting in a way that somebody could take away something positive to go through what Tab went through, that whole star-making system, and come out the other end grounded is really rare.
Well, the important thing is it's a journey. I'm so glad that Alan was able to show the earlier years, the Hollywood years, and the golden years. And we're all on a journey, so let's make it the best possible journey we possibly can. Because along the way it's all about growth, mental, physical, and number one, spiritual. It's that simple, but that difficult.
It was interesting, like you had your journey, and I was also interested to see Mother Dolores in that film.
Isn't she terrific?
Well, I had the pleasure of interviewing her a few years ago when she wrote her book, because besides, did she made a film with you? Was she in a film?
Oh, no, we didn't make a film, but we dated. We did a lot of movie magazine layouts.
Because she was a starlet, and who gave her first kiss?
Elvis Presley gave her first screen kiss.
Well, she gave Elvis his first.
Well, I should say she gave Elvis his first screen kiss, but then she also did The Pleasure of His Company on Broadway with Cyril Ritchard, and I did the film, and I thought I was going to be doing it with Mother Dolores, beg your pardon, Dolores Hart in those days, and Debbie was given the role in the film. Yeah.
I also had the pleasure.
We just saw her in Connecticut a few weeks ago. No, a few days ago.
She's fantastic.
Well,
She's one of my favorite people.
The best.
Another person I've had the pleasure to meet a couple times is John Waters, who just, you're always surprised by how sweet this man is.
You're right.
Because he's so twisted in other ways. And he's a Baltimore guy. But tell me a little bit about working with him.
Well, I was finishing a play in Indianapolis, and the telephone rang, and it was John Waters. He said, "Hello, my name is John Waters. I don't know if you've heard of me before," and I said, "Whoa, I'm a big fan of yours. I loved Mundo Trasho and Pink Flamingos." And he said, "Well, I've got a script, and I was curious to know if you'd be interested in possibly doing it." I said, "Well, do send it to me. I have 2 weeks off before I have to do another play." And he said, "Oh, wait, one question first. How would you feel about kissing a 350-pound transvestite?" I said, "Well, I'm sure I've kissed a hell of a lot worse." But John was tremendous to work for, one of my favorite directors, and Divine, without a doubt, one of my favorite leading ladies. I put him right up there with Sophia Loren, Natalie Wood. I mean, he was really terrific. And we still keep in touch with him, by the way.
Do you really? That's going to do something else? Are you done? Are you done acting?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Really?
Yeah, it was spooky enough having to do this. Because you have to open up and tell things. And I'm just not, I was brought up by a very strict, religious German mother who said, nothing for show. So I wind up in show business. But no, I'm just not, I've never been, it's not my comfort zone.
And Alan, you had to talk him into this, right? So that was...
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting because Tab isn't comfortable doing this, but that was the quality that made him a big star, was that shy quality that came across the screen in the 1950s, which was the antithesis of Elvis and Jimmy Dean and that kind of thing. I also wanted to make the point that I found the story interesting because it wasn't Tab's sexuality that brought him down in the 1950s. It was his choice to leave Warner Brothers in 1959. And What happened was they didn't have any films in development for him, so they asked him to star in a television series. Well, back then, when you were a movie star and you were asked to be in a series, that was a step down. And the series he turned down starring in was 77 Sunset Strip, which was a big hit.
Were you in Ed Burns? Wow.
Yeah, it was the demise of the studios, without a doubt. And but I've got to tell you, there was a lot good being under contract to a studio.
Now, Wikipedia is never wrong. Everything it gets is always right. They claim that your sitcom was actually a big hit in England. Is that true?
Believe it or not, it was such a bad show, but it was the #1 show in England. I can't. And here we were opposite the last half hour of the Ed Sullivan Show, which was a Sunday night institution. But our show was terrible. It started out being really good. We had Stanley Shapiro, who wrote Pillow Talk. Stanley wrote that script, and it was magnificent, and we had him as one of the producers, and then he, conflicts and so forth, and, he was wise, he stepped out of it, and egos are a killer in that business, and in any business, and he stepped away, and it just went, that was it. We did 36.
In those days, that was.
And in those days, that was that's 3 years worth today, you're right.
Yeah. Were you a good actor?
I was the worst at the beginning, the terrible. I couldn't read my new name off a piece of paper. Where do you serve your apprenticeship? I was going to call the book Product of Hollywood. In fact, I have a very funny story. Julia Child was a friend, and I used to see her at the farmer's market every Saturday morning. And Julia was in her wheelchair. It was her later days, and Stephanie was pushing her there. And one morning I said, "Oh, good morning, Julia." And she said, "Deb, come here." So I walked on over. She said, "How's the book coming along?" I said, "Fine, how's your book coming along?" She said, "Never mind my book. What are you calling your book?" And I said, "Well, Julia, I thought I might call it Product of Hollywood." She looked at me and she said, "That's not very sexy." She was a great character.
I do want to open up for a few questions from out here. If you want to think of one. Anyone have at the top of their... There, sure.
When you were an ice skater, was that before you were an actor?
Yes, it was. But I was involved with horses way before that. But the reason I gave up skating is because that's only your own accomplishment. But I love the idea of working with a horse that has an animal that has a life of its own. That rapport is kind of magnificent.
Speaking of horses, you guys drove here today. You are local, right?
I was local years and years ago for a few years.
Yeah, okay. Where are you now?
We live in Santa Barbara.
I'm in Santa Barbara.
Yes.
Anyone else? Come on. It's Tab Hunter.
Sure.
You're not going to be in the same room with him again for a long time. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, Tab. The man's wearing a Tab shirt.
I wish I'd registered the name. They wouldn't have put that drink out on the market.
Did you know Farley Granger? And if you did you read his book or feel like maybe he had experienced a lot of similar things, I would imagine, as you did? And did that help you decide to write your own autobiography at all?
No, it didn't, but I did know Farley very slightly. He was a very good friend of my friend Dick Clayton, who was my agent. Dick Clayton was the top agent for Jimmy Dean, Jane Fonda, Burt Reynolds. I mean, anybody in the business. But Farley and Dick were very good friends, and Farley was a wonderful actor. I really liked his work very much. In fact, he did a film for Luchino Visconti called Senso, and Luchino had originally contacted me in Hollywood. I never heard about it until years later when I was in Italy, and Luchino told me about it, because I thought, oh no, to work with Visconti would have been what a great opportunity. Sure. But I did work for him while I was there, but I did not know Farley that well, other than just having met him socially a few times. He was a fine actor.
Right here. Yeah.
Did you ever do any movies now with Doris Day?
No, I never did a film with Doris Day, but we were on the same lot, and I used to see her there every now and then. And I saw her at a cocktail party one time. She was in a little velvet suit, and I said, "I have to tell you, you have the cutest little body." Aside from her great voice, she's an amazing woman. She has a hotel up in Carmel.
I'm from Carmel. That's
Oh, really? Oh, that's you can take your dogs there. That's perfect. It's perfect. Cypress Inn, is that it?
Was someone right behind? Yep.
Who are your favorite or most down-to-earth actors and actresses to work with?
That's a good question. My favorite actors and actresses to work with. Geraldine Page, without a doubt, was brilliant. She told me something I want to pass on to you. I said, Jerry, the press love you and they hate my guts. And I said, every time she grabbed hold of my arm, she says, stop it. If people don't like you, just remember this. That's their bad taste. I thought, whoa, that's pretty powerful. So I accepted that, and I tell that to everyone I meet. If people don't like you, that's their problem, not yours. But she was one of my favorite people. I taught her to drive a car. And I would say others, three that I pray for every Sunday in church because I loved them. Gary Cooper, Fred Astaire, and Van Heflin. They're incredible human beings.
Can you talk a little bit about reconciling yourself with the Catholic Church?
Absolutely.
Or the church reconciling itself with you? I don't want to put it on one side or the other.
No, I think it's not even reconciling. I just think that is between you and your Maker. And that's what's important. That is between you and your Maker. And I love what the Pope said. Who are we to judge? That's pretty powerful. And we're all guilty of judging. Oh, she's like this. Oh, he's like that. Oh, they're like that. And we shouldn't do that. I mean, we've got to lift our thinking. It's very important. And particularly in this day and age when everything seems to be so negative.
Yeah. Right there.
Surely.
Thank you for being real.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for being real. R-E-A-L.
For being real.
Real.
Yeah.
For being real.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm a little hard of hearing in my old age. Yes, ma'am.
Say, since so many of us are from here, tell us a little bit about your experience when you lived here.
When I lived here, well, unfortunately, I wasn't here as much as I wanted to be because I was out on the road working. But one of the places I was working was in Ohio. A horse dealer friend of mine was there. I bought a wonderful horse and brought him back here, and started jumping him and sold him to a person that I had that I knew that rode it a lot, and really, really a good horse. I bought him in Ohio, so I called him Holy Toledo. But living here was wonderful. I had some very good friends. Dodie Islin, Dodie Veer, over in Unison. Spent a lot of time with her. And of course, I cannot forget Eve Fout, Paul Fout, Virginia. I knew when she used to ride ponies. We'd go out hunting with Orange County. Nina, who's a wonderful horsewoman. Dougie, who now trains the racehorses. I spent a lot of time with them. I'd throw a horse or two in the van and come over and we'd ride together, or we'd hunt with Orange County, or I'd hunt with Piedmont.
Tab lived here from 1974 to 1979.
Okay.
And
I knew
before
there
he
was a
moved,
connection.
before he moved back east, and he lived over in Clark County, right?
I was there. Well, the first time I ever was here to spend any time, it was at Liz Tippett's place over at Lane Golden Farm. I was visiting. Liz was out of town. She wasn't there. She said, just go by the house and enjoy yourself. So it was a Thanksgiving, and it was so wonderful. I had a Thanksgiving dinner just by myself in the dining room and said a lot of thank yous. And then I knew I had to come back because I knew it was the best horse country. There's some good horse country here, but it's, in my book, the best in the country.
Yeah.
In junior high, I played Sahovic in Dan Yankees with races. I loved that movie as a kid. Can you just tell a quick story with Gwen Vernon and Bob Foster? That wasn't in.
Well, it was the whole New York cast. I was the only outsider.
Yeah.
And George Abbott did not want me at all. He thought I was a little light in my loafers for the role. I thought, give me a break. But I loved the role, and I knew I was right for it. And it was very difficult doing the music for it because there was a musician strike at the time we did that. And all of the actors sang to their Broadway recording. I had to sing to Stephen Douglas's recording, then go on a sound stage without any musical accompaniment and sing the whole score. in every song. That was very tough for your first musical. Gwen was the best. But look at that cast. Ray Walston, Gene Stapleton, Shannon Boland. I mean, I was very lucky to be a part of it. And Bobby Fosse. I said, Bobby, I don't dance. I have 2 left feet. He said, you're going to be fine, Tab. It's always good to have someone like that to rely on.
As a Washington baseball fan, I want to thank you for making Damn Yankees. And it's as close as apparently as close as I'm ever going to get to the World Series.
Spoken like a true fan, Washington fan.
At least they didn't call the team the Senators.
No.
Listen, thank you for one question. You probably had some uncomfortable moments in your life, but the most uncomfortable moment in that film is when Gary Moore hands you the box of cigarettes.
Oh, how about that?
The box of Winston's. Here's the box of Winston's. Congratulations.
I know, that gets a good laugh. They would never do that today. Very politically incorrect, but they've gone a little wild with political correctness. Come on, give me a break. Get a life.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all very much. Great seeing you and great to be here in Middleburg. God bless you all.
Thank you.